Alright guys, hey guys, Jason here. I'm going to show you how to make a simple card wallet. I had a bunch of people keep asking me to make a video for this. Sorry I haven't done it sooner. Alright, so I'm just going to get right into it. There's many different ways to make a card wallet. I'm just going to show you one way, usually the way I normally make them. Alright, so this is the main pattern, the backing of it. It measures 4 3/4 by 6.5. 4 3/4 by 6.5. You can probably read it there. The holes, there are 11 holes going this way, 18 holes going down that way. Same for the other stuff, 11, 11, 18, 18, or 11. As I told you guys before, I do my stitching holes in increments of 1/4 inch. So this is 1/4 inch graph paper, so all these holes are 1/4 inch apart and 1/4 inch inside. So you just mark them with your pen. That's real easy. You don't even really have to mark them if you don't want to. Okay, the pocket's a little bit of a different story. As you can see, the pocket is slightly off measurement. The pocket is actually 2 5/8 by 4 5/8. And the reason being, you don't want your pocket flush with the outside or sticking out. You actually want the pocket in a little bit so you don't see it. Just makes it look a little bit nicer. So with that, you're going to have 10 holes instead of 11. And that's going to be for stitching reasons. And I'll show you that when we get there. But, so you guys are more than welcome to copy this pattern if you want. This is 4 3/4 by 6.5. And the pocket is 2 5/8 by 4 5/8. And now this finger slot, you know, you guys can do that however you want. That's just personal preference. So that's it. There's only going to be 3 pieces, the backing and 2 pockets. That's it. And so we're gonna trace these out real quick. Alright guys, hopefully you can see this. I didn't actually use the template. I just used my square. It's, like I said, 6.5 by 4 3/4, and you can just use your square just twice and measure. Sorry for hitting the camera. And just do it like that. So we got that one drawn out, and then we'll do the pockets. Alright guys, I know I'm going kind of fast. I don't think you guys need too much of a tutorial how to trace around paper onto leather. Same thing with these pockets. They're 2 5/8 by 4 5/8, so all I did was just use my square. Whenever you make templates, you don't actually have to use them to trace around if they're square. It just depends on the shape of it. Having a template is more just so you remember the measurements of it. And if you use your square, you keep them nice and plumb, I guess, if that's what you call it. So I used the square to draw out the pockets, and then I stuck the pocket on here and then drew the thumb hole on there. And that's it. So we just got 2 of them, and now we're going to cut out all 3 pieces. Alright guys, I know I just kind of breezed through this first part real quick, but I don't think you guys need too much of a tutorial on tracing patterns. Okay, just a quick rundown if you are confused. This was the pattern for the main backing. It's just a rectangle, 4 3/4 by 6.5. And the pockets are 2 5/8 by 4 5/8. And the main backing, we used the 8 to 9 ounce veg tan, and the pockets 4 to 5 ounce. The pockets are a lot thinner, a lot more malleable. The backing is a piece that you want nice and thick. All I did was trace them, cut them out with your razor blade. And so next I'm going to do a stitching groove line on just the backing piece here. You don't have to do these on the pockets, which you can, but you'll throw the measurement off, and I'll show you why in a minute. Alright, that's it. Just a stitching groove line on that one. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to bevel all the edges. We're going to bevel the edges on the front and back of this, but on the pockets we're only going to do the top. Alright guys. Okay, so I beveled the edges. Not sure how well you can see that. bevel the edges on the front and the back, and on the pockets we only beveled the top. So next thing to do, you don't necessarily have to do this step. I do it, it just kind of helps. What I'm going to do is take my razor blade and I'm just going to cut off just ever so slightly, just the edges. Makes them a little bit easier to round off. You don't want to, I mean, you don't have to do this like I said. I just don't want like exactly a sharp corner on these. As far as the pockets go, I'll just take my shears and just, you know, just barely nick the corners so they're not sharp. Makes it a little bit easier too after you dye them. When you go to slick the edges, this helps make the slicking process a little bit easier. You don't have those sharp corners like I said. Almost done here. Oh, I missed a side on this one. There we go. Okay, next we're gonna measure out the stitching holes. Sorry, I'm making kind of a noise over here. Okay, next we're gonna mark our stitching holes, and so that's where you can go back to your template, your pattern, and like I said, there was 11 this way and then 18 that way. So what I'm gonna do, first I'm just gonna mark them. And if you do this all right, you won't even have to count them, at least this way. It'll add up in 1/4 inch increments perfectly. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use my stylus just to mark all the holes. Alright guys, so I got the holes marked, as you can see right here. Let me zoom out a little bit. Just like the template. 18 that way, or I'm sorry, 11 that way, 18 that way, and then on both pockets. These are measured in 1/4 inch increments, even going that way. This is 1/8 inch inside the leather, if that makes sense. And you got 10 that way and 18 that way, and did the same in both pockets. So we're just gonna, now you just punch the holes out. Get your punch and start punching them out. Alright guys, so we got our holes punched. You can see right there. That is the main backing, and then the pockets. Now, the next thing to do would be to go ahead and just start and dye it, finish it, and stitch it together, and it would be done. So, before we go any further, this is the time, since we're using veg tan, if you wanted to tool anything on here, now would be the time before you go any further. So, that's up to you. And I wasn't going to do that, but I think I'm going to. I'm going to tool a couple of my signature JDO skulls on here. And I'm not going to show the entire tooling process. I'm just going to kind of speed through it a little bit, just to show you guys. If you don't want to tool anything, then basically you can just bypass this part of the video. From here, you would just go to dyeing it. So if you want to skip through the whole tooling process, that's fine, and meet me at the end of that to where we're going to dye it. But if you want to tool it, tool something, now would be the time. So I'll go ahead and show a little bit of that. all done tooling on here. Now if you didn't want to do tooling on this, this is the part I was saying you want to come to, where we're just going to die the whole thing. And I got the pockets here. Now since I did the tooling on here, this is a little tricky. I want to leave the skulls veg tan and dye the rest black. And so this is a little tricky here. We're going to dye the sides or the edges first. Then we're going to turn it upside down very carefully, dye the back. And then we're going to flip it over and do the front and just go around. And then we'll come back with a paintbrush. But this is where you can either make or break your whole tooling design you just did. So you got to be really careful. You don't want any splatter of this dye on anything. Hopefully you guys can see this. Make sure when you're going around, do not touch your design at all whatsoever. Even if you know your hands are clean, I don't think you want to go through all that work we just did. Alright, now since we got the sides, the edges dyed, we're going to go ahead, just drop it like that. And then we're going to do the bottom, or the back I should say. I'm going to try not to get any dye on my, even though I got the gloves on, I'm going to try not to get my hands too dirty. Okay, so that's good. Now we're going to flip this over real carefully. And voila, we did good. Thank God. And then, so now we're going to go around the edges here. Be very careful. You can get as close as you want, but don't touch it. And then once this dries, we will come back with the paintbrush and paint the rest. It should be good. A lot of people told me to use resistors. I don't trust them. I've been doing it like this forever and this works. So I'm going to let this dry and then we'll do the... We'll go ahead and do these pockets, and these you can just go all over and no problem. So I'm going to finish dyeing these up and then I'm going to throw it in the oven like I do, 170 degrees for not too long, especially with this thin veg tan. You don't want to leave that in the oven that long at all, because you'll dehydrate it and stiffen it up real quick. So you don't want it perfectly dry, just dry to the touch. And on these pockets, go ahead and take your rag, paper towel, and wipe the dye. You cannot do that on the other piece that you just did the tooling, because you would smear the black all over your design. Alright guys, alright, the dye, all the parts are dry, and what I'm going to do, now I got to paint around here, and I decided to switch it up a bit. I'm going to dye the eyes red. Hopefully that comes out good. Get yourself some of these little, make yourself some little tin foil cups. They're free and they work really good. Pour some of the dye in for when you're using a paintbrush. Just a little bit there. And as always, I'm using the EcoFlow Professional Series. This is the red stuff. And hopefully I don't mess this up. Hopefully this looks good. I don't think I've dyed the eyes red before on these skulls I designed. Alright, so I did the eyes red, came out pretty good. It's not completely dry yet, but I'm going to go ahead and start doing the black around the edges here. And yeah, not the most exciting part. Okay, so I'm done with the dyeing. And that came out pretty cool, actually. Red eyes, the rest is black. I like it. That came out pretty cool. So what we're going to do next is we're going to slick all the edges and the edges of the pockets over there. We're going to slick the edges, then we'll apply the finish. When we apply the finish, it's going to darken everything a little bit, but it still should look alright. So let's go ahead and slick those edges. Get your water. Little thing of water, get your sponge on there, and slick the edges. That's simple. Okay, so we got all the edges slicked, and we're going to go ahead and apply the finish. Same EcoFlow professional finish that I've had in other videos. And we're kind of going to do this the same way we dyed it. I'm going to do the edges first. Oops, got some on there. Do the edges first, and then we'll do the back. Kind of want to show you guys how the front will change color. It'll darken once we do the front. Alright. Now when you apply the finish, you can just go over it all just like this, but do it kind of quickly. And you can probably see how that just darkened everything. Looks pretty cool. Not too bad. Okay, so we're gonna set that aside. We'll put some finish on the pockets. We'll put that in the oven, same 175, and then we'll stitch it up. Alright, well this is it finished. Got the two pockets here. And this came out very, very nice. I'm very happy with that. And once you have this dyed, finished, and comes out of the oven, it's going to be fairly soft. So this is when you can kind of start bending it and take its form. It's not going to really take its form until you wear it in your pocket for a while, but you do this while it's somewhat got moisture in it, it'll help it out. So we're ready to stitch it up. The one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to re-punch the holes after all the dyeing, after well, getting the leather wet, tooling, the dyeing, and the finishing. You're adding a lot of moisture and liquid in the holes, and it closes up the holes a little bit. Not always, but you just go through and re-punch them back out. It makes it 10 times easier to stitch it up. So I'm just going to do that real quick. Just going to punch these holes back out. Takes just a couple minutes, and then we'll stitch it up. Okay, so you can see now through the light, you can definitely see the light coming through the holes. That's what you want. That opens the holes back up, so it's much easier to stitch. I think I might have missed that edge one. Okay, so what we're going to do when we stitch this up, you can see these holes. You're going to have this extra one. These holes all line up right here, except for this very last one, and we're going to have the stitching go over it. So what we're going to do, I'm not going to show me stitching this up. I already had the video on saddle stitching. We're going to start on the second hole on the main piece, and that will be the first hole in the pocket. then we're going to go back to the first hole in the main piece and then all the way, if that makes sense. And then it'll be just like that. So start on the second hole of the main piece and it'll go through the first hole in the pocket, then back one, and then all the way. And I'll come back. If that doesn't make sense, I'll show you when it's all done. Alright guys, she is finished. That's it. So you can see how there's this first hole in the pocket and then this actual first hole on the other side. When I said I was going to stitch it up, if that made sense, you start on this one and go back. You start on this one and go back, if that makes sense. Now, the first thing you want to do, as soon as you're done with this, is shove some cards in here so it takes shape. Boom, cards. Now you can see how that thickens it up a bit. I got about 15 business cards in there. That's about as thick as everything that I carry with my license and debit cards and stuff. This will hold 15. I could have put 5 more in there. You can see how kind of thick it is. It's basically perfect. That tooling came out awesome. I love that. But so that's it. And you can kind of see one of the reasons I did the pockets smaller. As you can see, it sits on the inside. It's not flush, so when you can't really see the pockets too much, and that's what you want. You want the pockets to not be the same dimensions as the outside, the main backing part. Okay, so first off, this is pretty much my favorite style I like making on card wallets, or 2-pocket card wallets. Not too many people are carrying regular wallets around anymore. Not too many people carry cash. They're carrying something small. So, you know, everything that I did, this is how I do. You guys can do this however you want. For instance, the stitching up here. You could punch the holes all the way across and have the stitching go all the way across. For cosmetic looks, you could do that. And here's some other ones. This is the one I made a while ago. Pretty much the same thing, but it's got snaps on the pockets, and it's got some eyelets for a chain wallet. I don't really like the snaps. I did make a wallet for a customer with these snaps, so I tried it for myself. Not that crazy about it. I don't know why, but there's that one. And if you really want to get simple, actually, let me get to this real quick. If you see the difference in sizes, this was one my wife used to carry around. She got it from a friend. You can see how much smaller it is. Now, why is that? Because this is very, very thin, floppy stuff. It's very easily, malleable. The thicker the leather you get, the bigger you're going to want the pockets to be, because you've got a lot of stretching to do in that thick leather. So if you use something really thin and malleable, you can make it a lot smaller. You can kind of see the size difference right here. Also, here's some camo suede. This is actually all one piece. It doesn't look the nicest, but it's just something simple. It's one piece. You just fold over the 2 pockets, stitch it there and there and there and there. Same thing with this. This one looks a little bit nicer. Same design, but just one piece of leather. You just fold the pockets over and stitch them. I mean, you guys can do this however you want. There's no right or wrong way. This is how I make it. My card wallets are probably a little bit bigger than most people's, but I don't care. I like it. That's just how I make them. So, you know what? Feel free to copy. Please don't copy my logo, but feel free to copy the templates, the pattern of it. Use it for your own ideas or copy it. I don't care. But that's it. Thanks for watching, guys.